Hi everyone, and welcome back. We're trying to get back on track now to another episode of the ABCFC podcast and another episode of the good old tea break, the fourth instalment this is. And we thought with cricket season really hotting up here in Australia. Obviously, the Ashes is just a week away exactly today. Actually, of course, England are playing the Lions at the moment, and then obviously the Big Bash is just around the corner as well itself. So with that big stuff on the way, and we've got the Ashes review coming up for you next week on this episode, on our tea break episode next week. We thought, why don't we dive straight into our first bit of proper cricket content on this channel? Because pretty much up until now, we've done pretty much football with the occasional mentions of AFL for Ben's sake in terms of that quiz last week, if you guys caught it. Yeah. So yeah, we thought what better than to go a week early and just dive straight into the cricket content to get prepared for the massive bumper summer of cricket coming our way here in Australia and your guys' way for you people who watch it at home or wherever you watch it. How are you this fine day, Ben?
I'm great, Chester. Good to see you, mate. Look,
Yeah.
really looking forward to this episode. We did have a chat about sort of what we would talk about today, and I think this episode's going to be really good, especially for those fans of world cricket out there who have watched a lot of cricket like I have over the years, and there's some really interesting content that we're going to talk and discussion that we're going to talk about today. But what we've decided to do is have a bit of a chat about each of our top five obscure cricketers from over the years. There's been quite a few memorable moments of World Cups and the like over the years. So we're gonna have a sort of a deep dive into that today. So we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, both of our lists of these five cricketers, because I really only started getting properly into cricket in 2013-ish. Maybe like I knew roughly, like loosely, follow the 2010-11 Ashes series over here when we won 3-1. Thank you, Strauss, Cook, and Co. Um, Ben, meanwhile, has been watching as far back as what was it, '96 World Cup? You said is your earliest memories.
92. So probably yeah.
'92. Okay, well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I do, as part of, as I mentioned to you previously before we rolled, Chester, I did go through last night and watch a few of the reviews from some of the previous World Cups that I've listed for the episode today. So that'll be a great bit of discussion with some.
Yeah. So the list are going to basically my list. I'll just give you guys one quick spoiler. My list, no player precedes 2010 pretty much in terms of when they met. I mean, well, one of them precedes, but in terms of the international career, because these are obscure cricketers. The idea of this is they haven't played much, if at all, for their country. Obviously, well, they've played for their country as a stipulation we made. But anyway, I'm rambling. Ben's list will be, probably some more, even more obscure ones from days gone by. So let's dive right in if you want to get us started with your first obscure international cricketer, Ben. It's a good one, I think, isn't
I
it?
think it is, and we're going to start at number five. And look, we're going to go back to the.
I just want to preface this is not in order. If anyone's wondering, just like this is not like a five worst, one best. This is just random picks,
Yes.
basically. But I have but specifically, I have left my one, like my last one, till last for one specific reason. But we'll get on to it at the end anyway. Continue, Ben.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, so we're going to go all the way back to the 2003 World Cup, 50 over World Cup, I should say, because we do have a 20 over version now. But look, it was held in South Africa. Zimbabwe, I think Kenya hosted some games there as well. Australia ended up winning in the end, but that's not what I'm here to talk about.
Not talking about Australia winning it,
Basically,
are we?
one of the it was interesting because it was one of the rare sort of competitions now where you've actually got proper minnow and non or what we call associate nations. And one of the early games was actually the fifth match of the tournament was Canada coming up against probably the more highly fancied Bangladesh. And this guy actually played a pivotal role in helping Canada, yes, Canada win that particular match. It's a guy by
I don't actually think Bangladesh were that good back then, but
no, well,
yeah.
they
Yeah.
weren't because, as I said, I'd researched
Yeah.
the last two, or sorry, the World Cup prior to that, and they actually weren't. So, um, but
Yeah.
the guy that I'm listing at number five is Austin Codrington. So, not a
Never heard of
yeah,
him.
not a household name, but if there's there is more than one Canadian player in this list. So, if, Canada cricket fans who remember that World Cup and Canada's exploits, which were some good, some not so good. Um, we might do an episode about the worst one-day games of all time. They might get a mention, but yeah, look,
Wow.
16 with the bat, but it wasn't his batting that actually lifted him to the man of the match on this particular day. He was 5 for 27. He ripped through Bangladesh like a hot knife through butter, and really set the tone for giving them an early win, and really sort of sparking some inspiration for them to do something in that tournament. When I say something, as in not go, you know, without winning a game or a tournament. So yeah, he's my number five. Um, and who have you got at number five there, Chester?
That's a good pick to start off with some complete unknown Austin Codrington. Like, what a name that is as well, I have to say. I'd never ever heard of this guy. Probably like his only exploits in international cricket, I'm assuming, were that or in at least in and around that World Cup, I'd guess. Um, but yeah, we'll move on. Let's just go dive straight into my first pick. I'll just bring him up here. Sorry, bear with me one moment, people. Basically, this guy, okay, maybe he doesn't quite have the small international career that your first name had, Ben, but this guy played a fair bit for his country, in fact. The reason, I mean, he's not obscure. I guess his first pick, I've kind of bent the rules a little bit, but I just had to pick him in because, for just a standard cricket fan who aren't looking into it in huge amount of detail, you're probably not really going to know who this guy is that much. But again, if you follow cricket a little bit further down and you watch the World Cups and stuff like that, and you pay attention to most of the teams, if not all the teams in it, you'll definitely know who this guy is. Mainly by the face paint that he dawns on both of his cheeks. That is none other than Hamid Hassan, the Afghanistan seamer, um, who I've simply put in this list just because of the fact that he looks like he's the most patriotic cricketer ever, and you just gotta love that level of passion when he's running into bowl and he's got like the black, green, and red stripes just like painted on his cheeks. Like he's like the mascot of Afghanistan basically, and like charging into bowl and like with that aggressive look as any fast bowler would have on their face when they're fully zoned in and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, again, he's a fairly
Yeah,
big name in Afghanistan cricket, it has to be said,
yeah, no,
especially
definitely. I
like from
remember
the early
you were
stages.
telling me
Yeah.
about this guy, and I know some Afghanistan cricketers. Mohammed Nabi played at Renegades for a while, but I didn't
Yeah.
had never heard of this guy. So that's a fantastic, straight off the
Yeah.
bat, a great option there.
But yeah, I'll just read some of his stats just in case anyone was interested. Um, he never played Test matches, obviously, because he retired for Afghanistan shortly after they started playing Test, and he never obviously got a call up to the Test side. But he did pick up 59 wickets across his ODI career, 35 for T20s. Admittedly, he only played 38 games in one-day cricket, 25 in T20 international cricket. I mean, 59 wickets in 38 one days isn't a bad return. Two fifers, 5 for 45 is best innings figures. The economy not bad as well. 4.6 is a steady economy for one day internationals. If you think about it, I mean, batting really not much to write home about because he's proper tail end batsman really only scored 107 runs in total in one day cricket and only 50 in T20 cricket. I mean, not really much more you'd expect from a bowler who doesn't really bat all that often, really. But yeah, he's my first pick. Not really obscure in the slightest, I admit, people, especially if you know cricket at a slightly deeper level, because as I said, he's pretty much like mainstay in that Afghanistan team. I think pretty much from like maybe 2011 all the way through to 2019. I can't remember if he played in the 2023 World Cup, but he definitely played in the 2019 World Cup. But yeah, my first memories of watching like that Afghanistan team in the 2015 World Cup with him in it. Samuel Shinwari, Shapur Zadran, those sort of players. Noroz Mangal, Afsar Zazai,
That's not bad.
that Afghanistan team. I still remember watching the full game when they played Scotland and got their first ever World Cup win, and the drama at the end when Shapur Zadran clipped that ball off the pads for four to get the winning runs of the game. Like what a game that was. Um, yeah, just a random footnote, but yeah, that's my first pick. Old Hamid Hassan. I'm pretty sure he's retired now. I'm fairly certain he's retired now. But yeah, not super obscure, especially not compared to your Austin Codrington. But I've got a few. My next four might be a little more obscure. But yeah, who's number four for you, Ben?
Well, I can assure you, viewers, that my next four are just as obscure as the first. But this one, we're actually staying with the Canada side from that '03 World Cup, and this Chester for me. and I think I've mentioned this to you previously about this particular game. This is going to be one of the craziest games of one day cricket, if not World Cup cricket of all time. And it's a guy that our viewers who follow Sheffield Shield cricket and domestic cricket may actually be aware of who this guy is before I even mention his name. It's an absolutely remarkable story. Certainly got a lot of people sort of wondering who this guy was when this moment happened. It's a guy by the
I think I know who you're about to say because you mentioned him to me
yeah,
before, but I won't say. Just in my head, I've got a
yeah.
name. I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do
Yeah,
actually, because
yeah,
then I'm not gonna say it out loud to spoil the viewers. I'm gonna quickly message you on Facebook. So before, just quickly check my message and let me just tell me if I'm right or wrong about this guess of who you're about to
okay,
say.
far away.
I've just sent the message. Am I right or am I wrong? Because you mentioned this guy to me before, and I know this guy played in Shield cricket, but there's another one who did as well, I think. Yeah, okay, I spelled his name wrong, but yeah, okay. Continue.
John
Continue.
Davison is the guy that I've got at number four. Look, this is really a remarkable story from an international cricket perspective. He did play mainly Shield cricket for Victoria and South Australia, but lined up for Canada. He was actually born in British Columbia, so had Canadian rights in terms of his career. 03 to 2011, but it was actually 03 that where he made his mark in that World Cup in South Africa. This was a remarkable contest. So they came up against the West Indies, scoring 202 from their 50 overs. Now, this is actually Chester a tale of um,
Yeah. Back
two,
when 200,
halves.
back when 202 was a respectable one-day score. Now it's a standard T20 score.
In another episode, we'll get on to the absolute worst from this team. But this particular game was insane for one particular reason, and we talked about them making 202. Uh, John Davison was actually man of the match in this game, 111 of 76 balls. It's I may need to be corrected, but at the time the fastest ever 50 over century. And he actually took one for 36 in this game as well. The West Indies actually only lost 3 wickets, so
Somewhat of an all-round
well, he has
performance.
actually listed on Cricket Info as an all-rounder, so I didn't quite believe that. But yeah, look, some of the stroke play, and it is available on YouTube, is remarkable. Just shots all around the ground pretty much, and just throwing the bat at anything and everything almost. But like I said, it's a tale of two innings or two games, and I'll tell you why. So he makes 111. He
Hmm.
opens the batting.
It's not 11 off two of the
Exactly,
202 runs. Wow, that's
exactly. To
brilliant.
give you an idea,
He makes over
yeah,
50% of his team's
the
runs
ne-
in
the
the
next
entire.
the
That's
next highest
mental.
score was Desmond Chumney with 19. Um, so take that as you will. But yeah, I had to when I revisited this game. I was actually watching it last night, the highlights last night. He opened the batting, so he never. I think he used to bat maybe 7 or 8 with Victoria. I didn't think he'd
I was
open the
going to
batting.
ask, do you have memories of watching him down at the Junction
Uh,
Oval, seeing as he played
I
for your
did. I
team?
did. Well, I don't. We didn't play that many games at the Junction from my memory. I remember seeing some games at the G, and yet,
Oh, the G.
and yes, I
Okay.
do. I do recall him, playing in that amazing, Victorian team of yesteryear. But this was remarkable, and just to sort of put a full stop on it. 111 in an overall score of 202 really highlights his quality in that team overall. But this is a team that faced the West Indian side of Chris Gale, Carl Hooper, Mervyn Dillon, sorry, Pedro Collins. So they had quality.
Brian Lara.
Uh,
Is he getting Brian Lara in that
I
list?
don't. Well, they only lost 3 wickets, so I don't actually remember if he played. But
Surely he would have.
he, yeah,
2003. Yeah.
sorry, he did. Yeah,
Yeah, he made
yeah,
the 400 a
he
year
was
later.
bowled. He was sorry, he is right there. I don't know how I missed that. He was bowled for a glorious 73 off 40 balls. So, even he got in on the action. But yeah, look, the batting performance from Davison on that day was something that's still in folklore now. 20 plus years later, and that's why I've selected him as my number four.
Yeah. Fair pick. You got already started with two, but I mean, please tell me your next three aren't Canadians from the 2003 World Cup as well.
Not Canadian, no.
Okay, good, good. Um, let's see. Let's move on to my next one then. I just need to find him. There he is. All right. So this next pick of mine, non-England fans won't really know who this guy is really all that much. I know you told me last night when we were discussing the players we were putting into this, you've heard of this guy, but you are somewhat of a cricket fanatic, so yeah. But for England fans, especially around the 2011 to 2014-15 time, you will have distinct, almost nightmares of watching this guy turn up in T20 internationals for us. That is the South African-born, double earringed, tattoo armed fast bowler, good old Mr. Jade Dernbach. Um, as all England fans who watch this will know, God, yeah, I'm bringing this guy up, aren't I? But yeah, I am. The reason I'm bringing him up is mainly, again, maybe not the most obscure because England, he played a fair bit for England. I mean, 24 one days, 40 T20s in total for England, 31 wickets in ODIs, 44 in T20s. But what he's most notably known for is having one of the all-time lowest economy rates of any international, sorry, highest, doing a credit there. Sorry, apologies everyone. Having one of the all-time highest economy rates in white ball cricket and especially in T20 cricket across any player who's ever played or bowled. I'll tell you that economy rate that he finished his England career with an economy rate of 8.49 in T20, 6.35 in one days. It's not great when you're going to almost 10 and over as your average economy rate in T20s. Just has to be said. And yeah, I remember a couple of games watching him, especially against Australia, getting absolutely twatted around the park all over the place. Funnily enough, he actually had a spell in Australia. I can't quite remember who it was with off the top of my head, but he did have two big bash games, I think it was, and did pretty much nothing in them. Just went for tons of runs with the ball, bowled 15 balls in one game for the London Spirit in the 100 a couple of seasons ago, 23 runs for no wickets. So it's basically safe to say this guy's in there because he's just synonymous with being one of the worst white ball bowlers of all time. And England had the pleasure of actually somehow managing to play him 40 times in T20s and 24 one day internationals somehow. That shows you the state we were in back in those days with our white ball side. Yeah, you remember any clips of this guy? Because he's not a good bowler, I'll tell
No,
you
look,
that.
the name rings a bell, but like I certainly, I'd have to probably scour YouTube for highlights of the guy. But um, yeah, look, I remember sort of some of those players from England teams yesteryear. I think I shared with you a humorous clip of Alan Mullally, the former England fast bowler, scoring
Oh, when he
runs
kept getting ducks
at
and ducks and
in
ducks and
the
ducks and
I think it
ducks
was
and
the
ducks in
Monday
that one
Boxing Day
Ashes
Test at the
series.
MCG, I think, and
Yeah.
that was quite humorous in the days when number 11s weren't as versatile with the bat as they are now. But um, yeah, I know the name, but I'd certainly have to. There's other England players from that era that sort of more quickly come to mind from the
I
past.
could be wrong, but I believe he has played a couple of games for Italy since retiring as well. He's obviously not part of this famed Italian side who's going to the next World Cup. But yeah, yeah, just a name I had to chuck in there for any England cricket fans watching who remember that guy, just so they can look at their monitors when watching this and go like, "Oh my god, don't remind me of him. Just don't." Yeah, yeah, just basically, yeah. Again, like Hamid Hassan, played a fair few games, wasn't totally obscure like some of your picks so far, but just in there because of just the records of being one of the worst white ball and especially T20 bowlers of all time. So yeah, let's just move on away from him. And who have you got next in your list,
So
Ben?
I've actually made a very late substitution for my number three.
Oh,
Just to
commiserations to whoever it is you just left out at the
well,
last minute.
well, well, okay, well, to switch, this is if it pleases the court, it's going to be a very quick double act because I couldn't separate these two. They're from the same country, so I may as well give them both the airtime they both deserve because there's different sort of stories for both of them. But the guy that I did have picked initially was uh was the youngest Test player for Zimbabwe to score 100 on Test debut, and that's a guy by the name of Hamilton Masakadzo. Scored
Not that
17
obscure.
at age 17. Sorry, scored 100
One of
against
their
the West
main
Indies
batsmen for years, wasn't
in
it?
2000 2001.
Oh,
Um,
this is who you subbed out in it, and I can see why. Yeah.
yeah, so that's the claim fame. But look, I think he was on the board, or maybe still is, but he was a warrior for Zimbabwe in that sort of early 2000s era, Test era, where they had a really good squad despite some shall we say political issues. But the other guy that I did select is a guy by the name of Neil
Another guy from
Johnson,
that
who
Canada 2003 World Cup
has a
squad.
really good claim to fame that I found really interesting in my research. Was um, he was, I guess, technically a Zimbabwean all-rounder, scoring 131 not out against Australia at Lords in the Super Six stage of the '99 World Cup. Um, and
Oh, we're
the
coming
reason
back
why
for
that's
this one.
actually really interesting is Zimbabwe actually beat South Africa in that same tournament. Um, so, which was an upset sort of during that time. So they're the two that I've decided to select. At,
So who was the player again?
sorry, the second player, Neil Johnson. So
Yeah.
Zimbabwean all-rounder, scored 131 night against the might of Australia at Lords in the Super Sixes. Australia, as we know, went on um, to the semi-final against South Africa, and that's also one of the most amazing contests of all time in one day cricket. So I couldn't
I
sort of
mean,
separate those two, but that's who I've got at three.
yeah, I mean, I prefer your pick of of Neil Johnson than a player like Hamilton Massachusetts, who basically opened and basically dominated Zimbabwe's batting for multiple years. Might be one of their all-time highest run scorers potentially, or at least in the conversation. Would hardly consider him obscure. The Neil Johnson pick is definitely the better pick, so it's a good thing you swapped them.
Well,
Swap
well,
Massacres
so,
out for
well,
this Neil Johnson
well, in
guy.
that particular game, yeah, so 132 not out and took two for 43. And like I said, Zimbabwe did actually beat South Africa in that same tournament.
They were
He
still
actually
pretty good in '99 though, weren't
yeah,
they?
they a good side. Alistair, yeah,
Because that was when they had like the Flowers brothers were still probably in the team
yeah,
then. Andy Blignall was
yeah.
probably there. Heath Streak was definitely there. I'm not sure about Henry
Yeah,
Longer.
no,
He probably
no,
was, wasn't
he
he?
was
Yeah.
there. He actually he ripped through the Indian tail in that same tournament as well to beat
Yeah.
India. So they had some
So yeah, it
quality.
wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were pretty good then. You could argue they were slightly better than South Africa then, because that was kind of just before South Africa were kind of entering their kind of dominant era, or beginning their some not dominant, but like beginning there where they started to really establish themselves as a team. So I wouldn't see it as that much survival. But yeah, this Neil Johnson guy, I've never heard of him before. Hamilton Masakadza, I definitely have. Yeah, but yeah, so good pick, another good pick of yours. Really throwing back the years
yeah,
for
and
that.
just
But
I was just going
yeah.
to say he actually played county cricket for Hampshire and Leicestershire as well. So
Oh, yeah. As all good cricketers do make their way over to play county cricket at some point. I'll move on to my third one, and I'll move on to an Australian favourite who's played all of two Test matches for Australia. One against England in the 2010-11 Ashes series in that Sydney Test, which we put up 600 against them to win the Test and win the series 3-1 in total. And I believe one more against Sri Lanka in a series shortly after that, and then never again since then. A spin bowler who picked up 3 wickets. The bald man himself, played a fair bit, I believe, for Melbourne Stars in the Big Bash for a fair few seasons. It's none other than the legend spinner himself, Michael Beer. Australian cricket fans, rejoice now. I've mentioned an Aussie in this list. Um, I mean, what more can I say about him? I mean, you can't get more ridiculously obscure. I mean, you probably can get slightly more obscure, but it was around that time, just prior to Nathan Lyon, where Australia were trying to figure out who was going to be the next spinner after Shane Warne retired back in 2007. That period basically between '07 and basically 2012 when Lyon came in for his debut. And Michael Beer was one of them who had a little go and basically did not really that much. As I said, 3 wickets in 2 matches um, for Australia. Um, in that was literally not only that, that is the only appearances he's made internationally. Actually, he's never played a one-day or T20 either for his country. Just 2 Test matches, 3 wickets. Yeah, no, see you later, Beer. Thanks for coming. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, as I said, that list of fell into that kind of pile of spinners that tried it after Warne
yeah,
retired, but couldn't ever hold
I
it
was
down.
I was
I was
yeah
considering. I think we were both. I mean, I was considering chucking Jason Krejci in. I don't know. You might still put him in. We haven't heard your remaining two to come. He's another one. I know Stuart McGill was kind of more established, but the injuries kind of stopped him because he was relatively
yeah
decent.
Bo
I
Casson I
hear.
think is another one
Bo Casson,
off
that was
the
another
game
one. Yeah,
who was a legendary
yeah,
Victorian. played
Xavier Doherty.
a couple of tests, I think, in the subcontinent as well. Um,
Xavier Doherty was another one
Ashton
who
Agar
came and went.
has probably played more than a few
Oh
of
no, but Lyon was already
for
in the
sure.
team by
But
then. I'm just talking about,
yeah, this
you
guy
know,
I do certainly remember played with the Scorchers and the Stars as well. Bowen style
Scorchers.
of
That's right.
slow left arm orthodox. I know we hear of left arm orthodox spinners, but slow left arm orthodox spinners just to to sort of add even more to it. But yeah, started and I've seen him in Premier Cricket as well, and the guy certainly can bowl. But
Look, all I'll say is, I'm actually, all I'll say is, I've read this up. Apparently, his actual birth name is Michael Foster, but he changed it to Beard to avoid, brand recognition when he was playing and stuff like that because he didn't want those
yeah,
sponsorships.
yeah,
I'm joking, by the way. That was complete nonsense. I just had to put it out there to see if you'd catch on to the joke, but clearly you didn't.
yeah. Well, you talked about his opportunities, and yeah, that Test series in Sri Lanka. I think that's the last that we saw of him. So,
Yeah, it was.
but
Yeah,
certainly
one test
one
against
of those
us, one
short
against
lived
Sri Lanka.
careers, but certainly um, plenty of highlights. So took 5 wickets, um, 2010 for WA in a particular game. So um, against the touring England side of 2010-11. So did that catapult him into Test selection perhaps?
Yeah, I did. It very much did. And then he only had two test matches and got shipped off again because of Australia and their selection of spinners before they found Nathan Lyon, There we go. So, yeah. But I think that kind of sums it up about Michael Beer, don't you think?
I certainly do. Like we said, yeah, there's been spinners in the Australian side that have sort of come and gone, but they're still memorable for these reasons and great to discuss their careers even if they are short. But um, so moving on to my number two, and this is an absolute beauty, I think, and we sort of you and I sort of discussed this very quickly before we jumped on here. We're going to go back to the '03 World Cup, and I apologise to
Here we go again.
our viewers, and I did just a little footnote because you mentioned before. I hope there's no more Canadian players in your list. I do have some.
Oh, don't tell me there's
I
another
do have
one.
some honourable mentions, and one of them's still in there, but it's not the. It's
So, in a list of top five obscure international cricketers of all time, you've chosen three
no.
Canadians from the same damn World
No,
Cup.
one
Okay.
of them's in my honourable mentions, but it's not the guy I'm about to talk about. This player and the team that he played for is remarkable from that World Cup in 2003 in South Africa. Um, where do I start? So it's Asif Karim, the veteran off spinner from Kenya. Um, this guy had a really good tournament and was one of the reasons why Kenya actually made the semi-finals. Yes, the semi-finals of that World Cup.
That's
Um,
mental.
the and the reason why I highlighted this guy is because um, he had a fantastic game against the might of Australia. But they won some amazing games on their way to that contest. But he really sort of announced himself as one of the players to watch in that tournament by taking 3 for 7 against Australia. How many sort of associate nation players can say that they've taken 3 wickets um, for 7 runs against
In a
Australia?
match, let
Yeah,
alone against
yeah,
Australia in for seven runs. Yeah.
that's right. And looking at, I've got the scorecard up here. Against the might of Brett Lee, and I remember vividly Brett Lee actually. I think he did or almost broke the arm of. I think it might have been Kennedy Oceano with a bouncer in that game. So, um, and ironically, in that contest,
Safe to say, Australia were just a little bit,
J-
scarred by what Asif Karim had
for
done to them.
so much so, Chester, that Kenya scored 174 for 8, and he didn't bat in that contest. So that tells you read into that view as what you will, but maybe he was getting ready for bamboozling Australia with the ball. But
Getting the golden arm ready.
Well, exactly the golden arm that got rid of Darryl Lehman, caught and bowled Brad Hogg, and an LBW of Ricky Ponting, the captain. He knocked over the captain. But look, a fantastic effort, and that's why I've got him in as my number two, because
Yeah.
you don't see too many innings like that in such an important game. And this was before the semi-final. This was a Super Six contest where you just think, oh, Australia are just going to mop the floor with the minnows.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I was
but
going to say it's such a shame that Australia went on to win the World Cup that World Cup anyway. But yeah, still,
yeah,
an amazing, ridiculous performance, and I still can't believe Kenya made the
well,
semi-finals of a cricket World
not
Cup.
only that, but this is something I brought to your attention just before because I found it really interesting. You see a lot of players at cross codes in different sports over the years. Asif Karim actually captained Kenya in Davis Cup tennis as well, which blew my mind because that's just a
In
remarkable.
tennis,
Yeah,
that's just brilliant. That is.
yeah. So you know whether that helped him with his good line and length in that tournament, we don't know. But that's who I've got down as my number two, and I think a very worthy choice.
I'll
Yeah,
say, yeah. Just on a side note of that, you saying him playing cricket and then also latterly going on to play tennis professionally. Bet you didn't know this, but during the 80s, Sir Ian Botham was actually playing professional cricket in the lower leagues of English football, sorry, professional football, sorry, in the lower leagues of England for Scunthorpe United, whilst he was still an England player in
didn't
cricket.
know that.
Bet you didn't
Wow.
know that. That's mental, isn't it? It was basically, to be fair, it was when he had that kind of ban, like when he had that controversy going on. He was briefly out of the England side for a bit of time, but still, like he was a professional England cricket player who was also then playing professional football in League One, or I think possibly League Two at the time, or the equivalent of League One and League Two now, so Division Three or Division Four for Scunthorpe United. He also played for Yeovil Town prior to that when they were in the non-league. Just thought I'd bring that up as another example of a player who's played professional cricket and another sport professionally as
It
well.
can be done.
Um, yeah, it can. Moving on to my second, we're going to stay in England for a Scottish player by the name of Josh Davey. Again, I remember mainly from the 2015 World Cup. I know he's played in World Cups since for Scotland, but I do remember him mostly from the 2015 World Cup. I almost remember him as like a somewhat Stuart Broad look-alike, maybe. I mean, he's not 100% look like him, but tall, kind of brown blonde hair. Nothing at all like the bowler that Stuart Broad is, obviously. Um, but still, a respectable career for Scotland. 31 T20s, 33 ODIs, 50 ODI wickets, 37 T20 wickets. Definitely, a decent bowler, especially in the ODIs. I remember him being one of the better Scotland bowlers in that 2015 World Cup. But one of the main reasons I've put him in this is because what he became, like, what happened with his career in a way since then. And like, I thought maybe he retired because it's not like I watch Scotland all the time, obviously. Sorry, don't mean to offend any Scotland fans out there. Um, but and then, like, I don't know, I was just looking for some county championship results over this and the previous seasons, especially this season just gone. And I just remember seeing like a couple of Somerset batting cards and seeing this dude opening or batting at three called, and it was like Jay Davy, and I clicked on it, looking at it, going like, that can't be the one I'm thinking of, right? The bowler for Scotland in the 2015 World Cup. I open the profile up, it's Josh Davy, and I'm like, what? So yeah, that's the reason he's on here, and the reason like he's in my number two spot. I know at the beginning I said we weren't ranking these, but it turns out we are. Um, why he's there in my number two spot? Because he's a bowler, a seam bowler for Scotland in the 2015 World Cup, and in the 2025 County Championship, he's opening the batting or batting at three for Somerset. Now, that being said, he isn't exactly amazing at it, but to be fair, I'm looking at the stats now. High score of 75 in first class cricket, 650s, 1,893 runs. Yes, he's played 83 matches, but I like to think the bulk of those runs have obviously come in the last few seasons since he's just suddenly gone from batting at like 8 or 9 to batting at 2 or 3, which is just mental. Um, that's why I had to put him in there because it's like this dude who just is a bowler in the 2015 World Cup. It's all of a sudden opening the batting or batting at three or basically batting in the top order in the county championship 10 years later. It's just mental. That that's really all I can say about him. And the fact that like, it's a short one about him, but it's just mental, and I could never forget that. I mean, do you have any memories of him from the 2015 World Cup, or Do you have any memories watching Somerset, him batting for Somerset in this season just gone in the
I
county
do actually.
championship?
Yeah, I do remember him bowling for Scotland. I mean, as you know, Chester, from our friendship and sort of planning this podcast, I'm a big fan of the Associate Nations, and if that's not obvious by this episode of the podcast, well, it is now. I do.
I mean, it's true. Your picks have been like two Canadians, a Kenyan, and forgot who your other one was, but I know it was another associate,
Yeah, Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwean. A Zimbabwean, whereas mine have been well, Afghanistan, not an associate nation anymore, obviously, but back when Hamid Hassan was playing for them, they were. But a Zimbabwean, an Englishman, an Australian, and a Scot. Okay, fine. A proper associate nation pick for mine has finally come in, and there's one more, but that's my list has started weak in terms of obscurity, but it's about to win the episode basically when I reveal my number one and talk you through that one because that's going to take up a fair bit of time maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else you remember about Josh Davey?
Oh well.
It's really the only reason I put him in there is because he's gone from bowling and batting at like bowling seam and batting at like 8 or 9 to batting at 2 or 3.
Quality, quality player. But yeah, just look, yeah, some really interesting sort of names throughout that list. But that's certainly one for yeah. Scotland haven't always participated in cricket World Cups. Like 2015, I remember. 99, as I said, they played in that, but they've had some runs in the T20
Yeah,
Editions
recently
more
the
recently as
T20
well.
stuff.
Yeah, so and we've got a T20 World Cup coming up next year that we'll review in good time, and that'll be interesting. But look, it's a great list so far. But before we get on to our number ones, I've actually got some honourable mentions here that I'll just very quickly go through. And I'm
Yeah,
just scrambling to try and find some information about the um. But have you got
about the Canadian 2003 World Cup team. Yeah,
have you got any
that's your honourable
have you
mentions.
got any chest just while I try and find the information that I'm looking for?
I've got one. I've got one again, not super obscure, but another one England fans will remember. Maybe not as horrifically as Jade Dernbach, but around the same time, a bald spinner called James by the name of James Treadwell. Um, he wasn't the worst spinner. He by far wasn't the best. He was just, one of those players that just kind of had a really unique sort of action. Looked, with the bald head, obviously looks stands out a bit more than the players around him. Obviously, got hair. I'm not insulting bald people. My father's bald people. My father's bald, everyone. So I'm not just having a problem with those who are follically challenged. Just saying that's what made him stand out. Yeah, it's not much of an honourable mention, but I just wanted to chuck it out there because it was just another one I remember when I was thinking back and then thought of old Jay
No,
Dernbach.
great.
But yeah, James
Yeah, no,
Treadwell.
I remember him as well. But I've got a few, and look, certainly, um, yeah, they'll be just as obscure as the
And Stuart Binney. I will say
Stuart
Stuart
Finney.
Binney
Yeah,
as well. Mainly for that commentary line from Shane Warne in that test match he was playing for India. Oh, bit of rubbish from Binney.
that is good. Um, so honourable mentions, and we did talk about that '03 World Cup for Canada, and yes, unfortunately, there is one more player that I am going to list, and it's actually the captain of that side, which was Joe Harris. And the reason why I've actually got him in there is because this game was remarkable for him and his side in two of the worst possible ways you can imagine, as we're about to find out. So, the game in question was against Sri Lanka in Pal. And I said it's not memorable for two reasons. And the first one is the score. Um, Chester, you and I we've seen
You
some.
Pelican.
No, 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 Pal, South Africa.
Oh,
Yeah,
Paul in South
South
Africa. So
Africa,
yeah.
yeah. And this game, as I said, it's memorable for two really bad reasons. But Chester, you and I have discussed some really horrific games over our journey, and this happens to be one of them.
You've been to
I
one.
bet, yeah,
Just that game in Geelong a couple of seasons ago in the Big Bash. You made the trip all the way down there for all of 6.5 overs of
uh,
cricket. Yeah.
yeah, and they want to move the Renegades to Geelong. Apparently, yeah, that's the reason why you wouldn't move it to Timbuktu if the pitch is like that. But we might, with the Big Bash preview coming up, we might actually touch on that a bit more. But so Joe Harris, captain of Canada, coming up against the mighty Sri Lanka. Canada was sent into bat and made an amazing total of 36 not out. If you're stuck in traffic in the car and you miss the first, you know, 18 overs, you'd miss the entire Canada batting team uh, performance. Um, Now, the reason why this is in my list as an honourable mention is Harris was actually out hit wicket for nine. Now, we've seen you and I, Chester, have seen many hit wickets over the journey, right?
I've seen Joss Butler in the in the 21-22 Ashes series over here. Joss Butler literally backed onto his own fucking stumps and knocked his own bails off when he was cutting a ball for
Yeah,
four. Like that is like I've seen
yeah,
stupid with some of this England
yeah,
stuff from the
yeah.
past. But
No,
yeah,
no, no, no.
continue.
I was just going to say you've seen the most sort of common dismissal for hit wicket is like backing on.
I mean, everyone knows the old Inzamam all hack, try to sweep the ball, fall backwards over your own stumps
Yeah, yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that's probably the more common dismissal of hit wicket, right? Stepping on your stumps, right? This is going to be one of the most bizarre I think I've ever seen.
please tell me he let go of his bat accidentally and the bat hit the wicket at the stumps.
I'll give you 50% of that because that is partly the answer. So he's playing, if I remember correctly, a pull shot, and the
Hmm.
bat actually comes down and hits the stumps. So in his action, like the bat, he's got his bat sort of almost like behind his head, and the bat actually sort of comes down and takes the bails off. So
The reports are after the match he paid Ricky Ponting $50,000 to give him lessons on how to execute the pull shot.
we'll never know, but that's an honourable mention, and just you know, two more just very quickly. But that was a shocking day on two fronts for Canada. Humbled by Sri Lanka, but the next one is a guy that only had his entire international career in that same year of 2003. I speak of none other. You and I, Chester, we do an A League review in a separate podcast every week. You've heard of the RBB? Well, this guy
Yeah.
is RVV, Rudy Van Vuren, the Namibian
The
pace bowler.
very well known Namibian, yeah.
Yeah, you asked for obscure folks. This is what you get. So, um, Rudy Van Vuren, so Namibian bowler who famously took 5 wickets against England in the same World Cup tournament, and that was his entire career. It was over in 2003. I think he's a doctor or a physician now back in Namibia. So, what a career a short-lived career to hang your hat on. And
Yeah, I know, right?
the final mention I'm going to give is to you go through lethal opening bowling partnerships in cricket, right? You talk about Lilly and Thompson. England have got Broad and Anderson, right?
Yeah.
These two are not household names, and nor should they be. But I'm talking about Martin Suji and Thomas Adoyo. The
Oh, of course.
the
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't know
yeah
them?
the Kenyan opening bowlers who just hard on their sleeve, blue collar.
Although I think I know the other one, Thomas Adoyo, whatever you said his name was, because I remember, like, the old stick cricket games, like the first versions of the stick
Yeah,
cricket games you could get on the
yeah,
phone. Like, and Kenya were in that game, and I seem to remember, like, those players from Kenya, like Collins Abuya, Nelson Odiambo, those sort of players, and Otieno, which you mentioned earlier in this podcast. Yeah. So, yeah, I do recognize the second name, but I don't recognize the
yeah.
first one.
But yeah, sort of one of the more uh, unknown sort of opening partnerships in world cricket, but certainly going by that tournament quite effective. So look, they're my honourable mentions, and I'm proud that they're as obscure as I can make them. So, but let's get on to our number ones. Yeah.
Number one.
All right.
Go.
Okay. So my number one. Now we did talk about you mentioned Michael Beard before, Chester. We talked about some of
Mhm.
those spinners that did have a short-lived but sort of memorable Test career for Australia. This guy's definitely another one in that boat. And it's none other than Jason Frazier.
Oh, good thing I didn't mention too much about him earlier, but yes,
Yeah,
the one cap wonder. I think well, maybe one or two or
yeah,
three, but anyway, yeah.
yeah.
Continue.
This guy, it's like having a batting average in one innings and then never playing again. This was you know, a remarkable sort of turn of events. I say turn because he took 8 wickets for the match in I think one of his only, if not his only, test for Australia in Nagpur. Was called up and picked ahead of Stuart Clark, who was a sort of a household name in that test lineup as well. So It's interesting because he was actually stuck behind Stuart McGill at New South Wales and moved to Tassie. I think after that Australia sort of jaunt and actually played some good cricket there. So, but yeah, remarkable figures of eight for 215. But the caveat on that is he actually conceded more runs than anyone in their maiden Test performance. But if you're taking 8 wickets in a match,
No,
um,
actually, I can correct you there. That was the record, I
okay,
think.
there goes it.
A couple of years ago, a spin bowler for Pakistan called Zahir Mahmood, I think his name is, I can't quite remember. I think it's something like that. Against England, picked up figures of 2 for 224 on Test debut, which is like, but that's in one innings, by the way. That's not the cross the match. That's 2 for 224 in one innings. Those are the most expensive figures in Test cricket history, I believe. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So no, I wasn't aware of that, but yeah. And look, it it comes back to talking about there are a number of guys in that Australian side, spinners particularly, who were sort of trialled. Bo Caston, I mentioned. Nathan Horrocks was another who did get quite
Oh
a
yeah,
few,
good point.
not
Yeah.
as obscure, but did certainly was in that sort of group. I think I mentioned Ashton Agar before Bryce McGlade.
But Agar, I mean, Agar came in after Lyon. It's more about
Yeah,
like before they discovered Nathan Lyon.
yeah.
Yeah,
Steve O'Keefe, Keith,
yeah.
O'Keefe as well. Yeah, but look, that Fraser story still is pretty remarkable to me to be picked for an Indian Test match and take 8 wickets in an innings on what was shall we say very spin friendly Indian wicket as usually they are. So that's my number one. I reckon pretty deserving.
Like imagine doing that and then basically barely getting picked for your
Yeah,
country again thereafter. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? But that was what Australia were like in those days. And they were panicking to replace Warne. Um, But yeah, that I guess takes us nicely onto the final one on my list and the final one in this video. And there's a lot to digest with this one. But let's cast our mind back to the 2015 World Cup again. You're doing 2003 World Cup with increasing regularity. I'm just going to do the same with the 2015 World Cup because I quite enjoyed that World Cup, and apart from the fact that Australia actually won the thing and England were absolute dog shit in it. But anyway, this isn't about Australia or England. This is actually about a proper associate nation. This is about the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and a batsman who batted at four for them in that tournament by the name of Krishna Chandran, or as he liked to be known, I believe, Krishna Karate. And the reason I put him here, he played 5 games of UAE's 6 games that they played in total at that World Cup. They lost all 6 in their group. Yeah, they had difficult games. They had to play India, South Africa, West Indies, in their group, and Ireland and Zimbabwe. I think that was the rest of their group. Um, so it wasn't easy for them anyway. But you're still at a World Cup. They had some batsmen who put in decent shows. It's just overall they were never going to be good enough to beat the teams they had to come up against. But the reason this guy's in there is for the stats to back up his what, in my opinion, might be one of the worst batting performances from a batsman in World Cup history, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, I don't know too much about the World Cups prior to 2015, so there's probably someone or multiple people who can challenge this. But just from what I'm aware, and I'm about to make everyone else aware if they're not already aware of
I
this.
just had to.
So,
I was just
firstly,
going to say, Chester. I just had to bring up his profile to identify who he actually is. So, yeah, Krishna Karate, and it is spelt the way.
Krishna
Yeah,
Chandran, yeah,
Chandran as per Cricket Info.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, this guy had an absolutely blistering start in this World Cup for the UAE with a massive 34 runs off 63 deliveries. Not really that good. But wait till I tell you, that was about as good. That was by far and away, by a country mile and some, as good as it was going to get for his run scoring in that World Cup, because he followed up that first innings effort, first match effort, with 4 more matches consisting of scores of 0, 4, 0, 0 for a number 4 batsman. He scored 38 runs in total. 34 of them came in his first game in that tournament, and even that came off 63 deliveries. So the only UAE batsman, mind you, who scored fewer runs than their number 4, well, not batsman, I should say, the only UAE player, because this player was an out and out bowler, number 10, 11 batsman, who scored fewer runs than this number 4 batsman for the UAE in this tournament, was Guruge, who, as I said, was a pretty much 10, 11 bowler who barely could bat. He was the only player in their entire squad who scored fewer runs than him in that tournament. Um, Across every single player who went out to bat and face a ball in that entire tournament, so not just batsmen, bowlers included, this Krishna Chandran had the lowest strike rate out of every single player in that tournament with just 34.23. So that's just slow for Test cricket, let alone one day cricket, right? Or steady at least for
Yeah.
Test cricket. And the fifth lowest average out of every single player who went into bat and face a ball, with the exception of those tail enders who got not outs. Because obviously, those of you who know cricket, like yourself, Ben, if you're playing two games and you're not out at both times, you're not going to have an average, obviously, because you haven't been got out. So, of those who actually could have an average, the fifth lowest in the tournament of just 7.60. And yeah, as I said, he's not coming into bat at 9, 10, or 11. He was coming into bat at 4, and he averaged 7.6, had a strike rate of 34, and scored 34 naught 4 naught naught.
Well, I've
Three ducks in five
yeah,
innings, a 4, and then a 34, which was still
yeah.
slow.
Well,
So that's why he's like, I had to put him at the bottom of thing. And I've got one more thing to mention
yeah,
as well. As a nice little
yeah,
throwback, to my first player that I
mm,
mentioned in this, Hamid
mm.
Hassan, because it just happens that, you know, Krishna Chandran scored the same amount of runs in the 2015 World Cup as Hamid Hassan, who I mentioned at the beginning was not known really at all for his batting. Both of them managed 38 runs. Hamid Hassan at a faster strike rate that was 10 faster at 44.18, and an average of 9.50, which is basically just under two higher than Krishna Chandran. So yes, he played one game more than Chandran. He was dropped for the South Africa game, in amongst all that. But he still came back for the last game and made another duck. So
Yeah.
nothing really
Well, as you
changed. So yeah, that's who's at my number one, and that's the reason he's at my number one. What do you think? One of the
uh,
worst batting performances from an actual established batsman in World Cup
well,
history,
as
maybe?
you've been sort of going through that timeline, I've actually had a little bit of a look at his some of his stats, and I've brought up his actual last international game. And this is actually interesting for two reasons, because one of them relates to a guy that you actually mentioned before. So this was back in 2016. I thought it might have been a World Cup game, but it was actually a World Cricket League Championship game, one of the most esteemed tournaments in world cricket, as we know. Um, but it was Scotland actually facing the UAE in Edinburgh back in August 2016, and this game is actually quite remarkable because he
He scored a run.
no, no, no. He batted and bowled, but six
Yeah.
overs, one maiden, no wicket for 48. So at economy rate of 80, got smacked. Fair to say. The best economy rate in that game was 2.8 in that innings. But it's interesting.
Oh, that's good, actually. 2.8 in a one day.
Yeah,
That's
it's interesting.
mental.
Yeah, it's interesting for two reasons, because not only did Scotland, they made 327 for five,
Mm.
111 from Preston Momsen, the captain, but there's the next guy in that was coming in. At number eight was none other than Josh Davies, so who actually played in that game but didn't bat. Um,
Yeah.
but also from a batting perspective, where are we here? He actually made a glorious 15 with the bat. So that was actually his
Oh,
last international game, and they ended up losing by, you know, just under 100 runs. So, and Davey got done for 8 overs for 49, so he got belted as well. So, um, yeah, but I do remember the UAE in international tournaments. I don't specifically remember this guy. But look, that's remarkable stats, and where they sort of interlinked to different players. Like
I
this
think
guy
that's my
does.
favorite. I think my favorite one of it, my favorite two stats of that whole thing is if we're ranking them out of every player who went out to bat, so including bowlers who bat at 10 or 11, he still had the fifth lowest average and the lowest strike rate, and he's a number four established batsman supposedly. Um, well, surely right because they were batting him at four in that tournament pretty much all the time.
He
So yeah,
batted, yeah,
four or
yeah. He
five.
batted at I think eight in this particular game. So yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean they've maybe realised right. Like, yeah.
eventually, yeah. So, um, um, so it's like that term in the workforce, fake it till you make it. Obviously, he didn't quite work out, but look, that's a remarkable story, and look, I'm really glad we've actually covered cover this particular subject because it's obviously taken us to
Yeah,
some amazing sort of connections between some of the players that we've already talked about. And what a time, hey, in world cricket
yeah, I know.
where those associate nations got more, not quite as much exposure as they do now, but there's some amazing stories.
Yeah, I know. Like, the world over, right? Amazing stories of obscure international cricketers. We could probably make several more videos and stuff like this, but we won't yet, at least. But we are going to keep going with the cricket content because next week's is the big tea break episode. You're not going to want to miss, people. It's the Ashes preview you've been waiting for next Thursday, and next Saturday is the watch along of day two of that Perth test that you've been waiting for as well. Obviously, we couldn't do watch day one because on a Friday, Ben's got stuff on Fridays during the day, so that wouldn't be possible. But that Saturday, we will be here together at my place, watching it live, watch along. I think we've been through this before in videos, but I'll say it again for those of you who didn't see it before. And before I do, I completely forgot we both did. We're almost an hour in. If you've got this far and enjoyed this and want to see more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a follow on
Yeah.
Instagram. You beautiful people.
Any of those players that we've just talked about, if you happen to stumble across this,
Yeah,
please like and subscribe. And look, only too happy to sort of discuss your amazing, careers, uh, because they were, we often forget about some of these countries and some of these players, but what we do have to,
that goes for you, Austin
yeah, yeah,
Codrington, whoever you are.
yeah,
Hit us
Michael
up.
Beasley, I'm sure is still playing club cricket somewhere in Melbourne. But yeah, let us know. But the thing is that we have to remember, Chester. A lot of these guys, and it goes with other sports, are probably part-time cricketers, right? They have day jobs and things like that. So to be able to still play in those tournaments and represent your country, and then go
Oh
back
yeah,
to your day job after what 4 weeks, maybe even
take that one
yeah,
away. I know we've been like ragging on Krishna Chandran for my last pick, but he's still an international
yeah,
cricketer. It's not like I'm going to go out there and smack 38 runs in 5 games for the UAE against like teams like India, South Africa, West Indies, Zimbabwe, Ireland. Right, good on him for at least doing that. But if we're comparing him to the rest of that tournament, obviously then we got to kind of, you know, put him where he stands in relevance to the other players he was playing alongside and with and against and so on in that tournament. So yeah, but anyway, as I was saying before, so yeah, we will be back obviously for the next T. Well, we will be back next Monday again for the next Bundesliga and A League review. We will actually be back. Well, that will be it's international break as those of you know on Monday, but we will have. Or I should say, we do have an episode coming up for the review of the week just gone for the Bundesliga A League action. I know it's staggered, but after this, we'll
yes,
be properly back on track with that. But yeah, so that'll be Monday. And Thursday, we'll have that massive Ashes review that we'll break down both squads now that both have been released for the first test. Well, England's for the tour, Australia's, of course, for the first test. We'll be probably putting a couple of predictions out, as stupid as that is sometimes for cricket to actually predict things. But you never know, right? And then we'll be doing the watch along on Saturday, of course. How we plan to do that is we'll do the live stream on YouTube. We'll do 2 hours for the first session. We'll take the break for the 40 minutes or so lunch. And then we're back and we're going to power on through both second and third session. Because it's in Perth and they've had their annual rainfall, we should be cleared for no rain delays at all. So hopefully,
fingers
right?
crossed, yeah.
Yeah, and we should hopefully still be having play on day two. It's not like the game's probably not going to be over. Hopefully, not going to be over. You never know with England, like how fast they like to try and wrap up games. And Australia's bowling attack. And then obviously the Big Bash review around the corner from that, of course. So yeah, big load of cricket coming your way over the summer, guys. Obviously, big Ashes series. England haven't won a match down under since 2011. That Sydney Test I mentioned before, the one which Michael Beer made his debut for Australia in. Look at the connections we're making here in this video, people. It's just like it's all falling into a place with perfect alignment for us, right? But yeah, anyway, so yeah. I've done good on the time. We're just approaching the hour mark, and it's a perfect time. We're ready to wrap it up, I say, this week, don't you,
Yeah,
Ben?
we thought it might have been a bit of a struggle sort of fitting everything in that we wanted to discuss and in the depth that we have, but it's been great. And what a chat, taking a bit of a trip down
Yeah.
memory lane for those who would be watching that remember those games. What an era of cricket, and look, we're looking forward to the Ashes next week and the big bash to come. As I've said in previous episodes, only until the Renegades have no chance of making finals, and then
So after like 2 or 3 games, same with Brisbane Heat usually as
yeah.
well. So yeah,
But looking forward to the summer to come.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. So yeah, we'll leave it here for another episode of Tea Break for you guys. Hope you've enjoyed, just like all the ones. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, give us a follow on Instagram, all that good stuff. So yeah, peace out, take care, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Take care,
Bye.
guys.